If you need any further proof that an aspiring autocrat is leading one of the two major political parties in America, look no further than the votes the Republican National Committee has taken this year. They voted to censure members of their own party, Representatives Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, back in February over their participation in the January 6th committee. In that same vote, the RNC described the attack on the Capitol as, quote, legitimate political discourse. Today, they voted unanimously to pull out of the presidential debates that have been run by the nonpartisan, nonprofit Commission on Presidential Debates since 1988. Trump had repeatedly criticized the commission after his widely panned debate performances in 2020. Today, the Republican National Committee made sure he wouldn't have to suffer through such an ordeal again. Calling the commission biased, the RNC said they would be looking for, quote, newer, better debate platforms. Did not elaborate on exactly what those platforms would be. Stuart Stevens is very familiar with presidential debates, especially from his work on the presidential campaign of Mitt Romney, also political consultant and senior advisor to Lincoln Project, and he joins me now. I thought at first this was maybe a bluff. This was, this was a way of kissing up to Trump, but it looks like they're actually doing it. And it seems to me like a pretty big deal. Like it's the end, it's the end of something. It's the breaking of something that can't be put back together. How do you feel about it?
Well, look, this is just the process. It's an autocratic playbook, and they're very methodically going through it. The idea is that they'll do it piece by piece, and therefore we won't notice the big picture. But when you read How Democracies Die by the two Harvard professors, their number one first rule of how autocrats rise to power is rejecting of democratic norms. And debate is at the heart of a democratic norm. I mean, in England, the prime minister has to do it every day. It really goes to sort of two trends in the Republican Party. One is Republican Party has become a party of fear. What is not debating, but you're afraid to debate?
Yeah.
Nobody dodges a debate. They think they're going to win, or they think they did win. It's fearfulness. Why do you make it harder for people to vote? Because you're afraid what will happen if a lot of people vote. Why do you make it harder for immigrants? It's a fearfulness of gays, a fearfulness of higher education. Somehow the conservative movement in America has become a place that appeals to sort of that within us that is fearful. And it's a really disturbing autocratic tendency, because autocrats, their purpose is to make you feel safer. I will be the big brother. I will be the strong man, and I will make you feel safer. And that's what the Republican Party wants.
You know, there's a few things here. One is that this is about Trump's ego, because he got his butt kicked in those debates. He looked ridiculous and petulant. That first one, which now appears in retrospect, he probably had COVID at it, that they were hiding, which is really wild to consider. But there's also a broader thing. I mean, ABC News did this roundup that Republican candidates in battleground states have been skipping debates quite a lot. Yeah. Over a half dozen GOP candidates in crucial state federal races have either skipped or not committed to primary debates. And there's this idea here of withdraw from any institutions you don't control that aren't in your bubble. That everything from the Committee on Presidential Debates to Hollywood to the Pentagon are all foreign other institutions that are part of the deep state that you want nothing to do with.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Ron DeSantis, his press secretary is kicking legitimate reporters out of press conferences because they don't like the questions they ask. This is absolutely what it's about. And there's a shamefulness at it. And we think that somehow they're going to come to their senses. But this is their senses. This is what they want. They're not going to revert. This is really coming down to a choice. And as somebody who pointed out flaws in the Democratic Party for a long time, it's strange for me to say, but I don't know any other conclusion. But there are two parties in America now. One is a Democratic Party, and that is the big D Democratic Party. And the other is a party, that Republicans, that have become an autocratic movement. And that's really the choice. I think it's between democracy and autocracy.
And one of the things that's highlighted here in this decision to withdraw from this, right, is that there aren't necessarily tangible or short-term political consequences or electoral consequences for these kinds of moves. I don't know in the end whether this hurts the Republican Party at the polls. I don't think anyone will care about it one way or the other midterms. I don't know if it hurts the candidate who's the eventual nominee, whether Trump or not. But the thing that kept it together was a shared sense of we're in a democracy, we're candidates for office, and you debate and you negotiate about what the rules are and you fight over that. You take that away, there's nothing propping it up in a short-term political sense, I think is part of what's been so unnerving about these last few years.
Yeah, unnerving is a good word because, I mean, I think one of the things that we're learning here is how much of a democracy is based on goodwill and how much of it is based upon sort of a civil contract between a government, its politicians, and its people. So there's not a law that says you have to debate. Look, there's not a law that says the Republican National Committee can't meet tomorrow and declare that Donald Trump will be the nominee in 2024. You don't have to have primaries.
Right.
And this is an eroding of this process that it's very methodical. What they want to be is what's happened in Hungary. That's why the CPAC is meeting in Hungary. That's their goal.